Flashlight, chicka 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 spotlight, chicka 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 neon light, chicka 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 street light, chicka 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 chicka. Everybody's got a little light under the sun, under the sun. What? Who doesn't love the music from these movies? By the way, check out my awesome pins. Got these when I saw the first movie in theaters. Oh, one last thing. These are plugged into nothing. I'm just crazy at this point. What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here. Long time no movie review in this familiar format. Also, apologies for this movie being up a bit late, as I feel like I am one of the last people on earth to see this film that I'm about to review. I just finished my second year of college this past week, so I took a little time off to myself, but I did finally see and review the film I'm about to talk about right now, as I am bringing you my review for the highly anticipated Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which stars a huge ensemble cast and is directed by James Gunn. Now, the plot is, of course, based on the Marvel comics of the same name and basically follows our titular Guardians of the Galaxy as they travel throughout the cosmos to help Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, played by Chris Pratt, find out his true parentage, which is apparently to a powerful entity known as Ego, played by Kurt Russell. Now, like I said, this movie is highly anticipated, as it is the sequel to the movie directly behind me, Guardians of the Galaxy, one of my absolute favorite entries in the MCU thus far. Caught me completely by surprise back when it came out in August of 2014, which, if you're a longtime viewer of my channel, you know that that movie is the first movie I reviewed in this on-camera format. So, in case you haven't seen that review, here's a little snippet of it.
You clicked on this video to find out my thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy, which stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, and Bradley Cooper. But there's a lot more to the cast than just those five, and is directed by James Gunn.
Well, it looks like I haven't changed at all. But in all seriousness, wow, that was almost 3 years ago. But now we have gotten a sequel to that surprise hit of a film. Of course, I was really excited to see this movie. Basically, all of the main cast members from the first film are returning for this entry, and so is writer and director James Gunn. So, how was it? Let's run down the whole thing. Starting out with this huge cast of players, much in similarity to the first film, and in short, they all proved to be charismatic players, especially the main team of Guardians themselves. For someone who is not a big comic book reader or really well-versed into this kind of lore, it was surprising to me that the first movie was able to captivate me to these characters, and the sequel does prove the same. We have Chris Pratt as Star-Lord / Peter Quill. He's the most likable guy in Hollywood right now, in my opinion. He is awesome, a basic Han Solo type character. Zoe Saldana as Gamora gets to be a badass in makeup once again. Dave Bautista as Drax the Destroyer. Another guy in makeup. He is killing it in this movie with his character not being able to understand metaphors or takes everything literally once again. Vin Diesel as Baby Groot. Baby Groot does steal the show. I mean, it's clear that with the design of this character, and even though Vin Diesel doesn't do much with his character like he did in the first film when he's a full tree, there's still something about it that makes me captivated towards him. We also have my favorite character from the first film, Bradley Cooper as Rocket. Don't call him a raccoon. He is more of a douche in this film, in my opinion. He is still hilarious, he's still very funny, but this goes into the writing as to why we see him act more devious in this particular film. There's other people here, of course, like Michael Rooker as Yondu, who was in the first movie and I did really enjoy, but he gets way more to do in this sequel. I'm a fan of Rooker from The Walking Dead, and I think he is the standout player of this film. I wanted to see a whole movie about Yondu. Just him with his flying arrow every time he whistles or whatever he does. He was just great. He was simply great. Karen Gillan also returns as Nebula. Didn't get much to do in the first film like Yondu, but there's more development with her this time around. I think she is great. Another person full makeup and gets some tender moments in between with Zeldanya's Gamora. We have Palm, I'm gonna so butcher her name, Clementif? Oh man, I apologize if I have butchered that name, but the actress who plays Mantis, she's a new addition to this film. She is really naive in short, but also adorable at the same time, just like Baby Groot and some other characters we do see here. She is a person who is raised by Ego, played by Kurt Russell, and is very empathetic. You know how there are telepaths out there? Well, she is that kind of person, but with empathy. We also have Elizabeth Debicki as Aisha. She is a fine woman for sure. She plays a bit of an antagonist of sorts who gives the Guardians a hard time, and she is the Golden High Priestess and leader of the Sovereign People. I thought she did well for what she had to do. Sean Gunn as Kraglin, for all you Gilmore Girls fans out there. You may know him as Kirk from that show, and he was also from the first film, but comes back to play some more. Sylvester Stallone, he has a small role that's really nice to see. And Kurt Russell as Ego. He is quite likable as this guy. I mean, Kurt Russell, this is the guy who is just utterly dashing what he does. He's been in other recent franchises too, like the Fast and the Furious series, but him as Ego, you cannot help but be gravitated towards this dude throughout the film, and just him as Peter's dad gives him a lot of moments with him. So, overall, with this cast, I feel that with the returning players and a lot of the new additions, they knock it out of the park. The writing in this film is as poignantly put together as in the first one. In fact, a lot of areas it does improve. Not only does the acting improve, in my opinion, with a lot of the players involved with this movie, but also increased character development. So in this movie, we get more development with them, and we establish how many more arcs we can have with them. Of course, the biggest arc is Peter Quill and his father, Ego, reuniting after many years of Quill not knowing his father, and there are other relationships being fleshed out with other characters too. We have Gamora and Nebula, who still have a sibling rivalry of one another. We have Rocket Raccoon and why he is this way from the beginning of the movie, in a little bit more of a douchebaggery attitude than he was in the first film, which he was to a very likable extent. We even have the relationship between Groot and the rest of the members, even though he's detached, because he's literally a baby. He literally has the mind of a child. Yondu gets some stuff to do in his relationship to Peter Quill and what happened before even the events of the first film even occurred. There's just a lot of arcs here that we have to come to see in this film, and I think they are all really fleshed out. Drax is the only one who I think doesn't get that much more attached to him, but we already got a lot of emotional beats with his performance in the first film. And plus, I feel that Batista's really capable in this role. He gave a lot of laughs, and speaking of that, the humor in this movie is on point, just like it was in the first film. A plethora of jokes to laugh at, a lot of humor that will fly over kids' heads, as there are a lot of adult jokes, a surprising amount of adult jokes used in this film, but nonetheless, for those who are able to understand it, it is hysterical. We also see the camaraderie between the Guardians themselves and the new characters introduced in this movie bounce off of each other. That also leads into how the Guardians are used this time around, and without spoiling anything, the Guardians, they are not together for a huge chunk of the movie. They get split up after the first act once Ego comes into the mix. I love that we saw all the character development throughout, but it lacked a little bit what we saw in the first film, just to see these guys bounce off of each other. We still get a lot of fun in between. Make no mistake about it, this movie is a blast to say the least. The action, just like the first film, is well done. Even better in my opinion, given how the visuals have improved substantially. The color palette is so vibrant with itself. The designs of some of the characters, the locations even. Ego on his planet looks amazing. Something out of a dream. Speaking of eye candy, I did see this movie in 3D. I saw the first film in 3D back when I first saw it in theaters upon release, and the sequel does prove once again that these movies demand to be seen in that format. This is a space movie, and space movies usually look amazing in 3D. I mean, stuff like Avatar, Gravity, The Martian. I saw the kids in front of me when seeing this movie try reaching out and grabbing for the things that were flying towards the screen, which shows how visually absorbing this film is. One moment in particular really got me with Yondu and his flying arrow after he whistles. It came up to the screen and stopped, and I was just like, whoa. So in short, I highly recommend you see this movie in 3D. Even the littlest things that are subtle in use with this movie really make it stand out. Like the first movie, the use of music is obvious. The first film had a phenomenal soundtrack. I like the original score with these two movies as well, but the soundtracks are what makes this movie and its previous entry stand out. A lot of retro hits that had me humming since I knew a lot of them from before I saw this film. Just the use of music really makes this movie get a style. James Gunn brings his A game once again with directing, gorgeous cinematography, the editing being very well constructed altogether, sound design. For a movie that runs at about 2 hours and 15 minutes, I never really got bored once, just like with the first movie. So when I say that all of the technical merits and other things with this movie are extremely well done, and me having a huge blast with it, the issues I have with it are mainly, yeah, it is more the same. It gives us what we want to see in a sequel and possibly a little bit more. Sometimes it felt like it was just trying to be that and just be a little bit uneven at times as well. The tone, I have to mention that while I did enjoy how it balanced comedy and serious moments for the most part, but it's not until I think really the final 5 minutes of the movie when it does get overbearingly emotional that I think it does earn what it was trying to push for, with a lot of the theme of family and what it entailed from the beginning of this movie. And in speaking of that villain that the Guardians do fight in the final act of this movie, I'm not going to spoil who this person is. I really enjoyed this villain. This villain is one of the stronger, definitely one of the stronger villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, when this person gets revealed as the villain a little bit before the third act begins and by the end of the second act, I thought it was a bit rushed. There was development between what this person does throughout the rest of the movie and whatever, but as a personal preference, it bothers me a bit when the villain is not established clearly from the beginning and then just shows up before the finale of the film. Again, I still thought this villain was super strong, but that's just me. Certainly better than Ronan from the last movie though. When push comes to shove, by the time this movie ended, it really did get to me on an emotional level, and just the final 5 minutes once again are simply beautiful and made it all seem like it progressed itself with how James Gunn would approach this series. My final thoughts on this movie are that the acting is fantastic. The writing and directing is top notch. The other technical merits, the visuals, the pacing, the music. I love the soundtrack a lot with the first movies. Just how we get to see more progression with these characters. What we see entailing what may happen in the future, as by the way, yeah, this is a Marvel movie. Stay after the credits, but there is not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 post-credits sequences. But you'll be treated to some of the awesome music that the soundtrack entails, so be sure to stay for that. It's the law. stay for the end credits for a Marvel movie. How do I compare it to the first film, though? Well, to me, while I think this is a really strong entry not only in the MCU and is a worthy sequel to the first film, I would have to say I prefer the first film over the sequel, mainly because it relied, in my opinion, on the surprise factor. I did not know who these characters were. Once again, I'm not a big comic book guy, and it really made me attached to these characters. Yet the sequel, of course, made me reinforce my love for them through and through and what they will do in the near future. If you're a fan of this series thus far, the MCU, these characters, you've seen it already. You probably will see it again. But if you haven't already, I definitely recommend it. My final verdict for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Please keep the comments as spoiler-free as I have kept this review. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.